Hello everyone, it's Fairiekin. Today this is a special Stranger Things collab between me, Hobnob Creations, art by K McSpadden, and ArtsterCat on Instagram. When I proposed this collaboration, I wanted it to be super relaxed because sometimes it can be stressful to have deadlines when you're working with other people, and we certainly don't need extra stress these days, and I really just wanted to bring other artists together. And this is also special because I'm not just working with doll artists this time. ArtsterCat and K McSpadden are drawing something for this. Again, this collaboration is super low-key, it's just kind of whatever goes, honestly, within reason. Just make something Stranger Things related and it'll be super fun. For those that don't know, Stranger Things is a Netflix original released in 2016. It's set in the 1980s with tons of nerdy references, aliens, government experiments, and unfortunate haircuts. The character I'm making this time is called 11. I won't give too much info about her just in case anyone hasn't seen it yet and wants to, but she's pretty cool. This show came out when I had just cut my hair short, so I immediately identified with 11. In Season 1, they have to disguise Elle as a normal girl, so they give her this wig and a dress. This is the version that I will be making.
Wow, she looks
Pretty. Good. You look pretty good.
So let's get started. The base doll I'm using is not a Monster High this time, but a doll line called Live Dolls by Spin Master. I've never seen these dolls before I found her at a thrift store. I've had her ever since I started the hobby, so she's been waiting to be customized for a little over 3 years. They have inset eyes and great articulation. When I first got her, I cut open her head, took off her face, and took out her eyes because I knew that I wanted to repaint her. So half of my work was already done for me. When I got this doll, she had green eyes, and Millie has brown, almost hazel eyes, so I bought some off of Etsy. These are 10mm eyes from Mr. Eyes on Etsy, and they are perfect. It takes some finagling to get the eyes straight. Right away, I start on her body blushing and face up. I gave her a quick spray of Mr. Super Clear and got to work. Okay. I have a confession to make. If you're part of my Discord, you already know this, but I actually lost all of the footage for her face, except for her lips, which is something, I guess. I wish I had a reason for the fact that this happened, like I hit a wrong button or something. I specifically remember filming it. But when I loaded it into my computer, it was just not there, and it's just not on the camera. I have no idea where it went. It's really unfortunate because I've never done a face-up like this before, and I really wanted to document it. But oh well. So instead, I will offer you this digital recreation of my process. Because I don't have to draw the eyeball itself, I focus on adding as much detail to her eyelashes, waterline, and eyebrows as I could. I add shadows and pigment around the eyelid, accentuating her eyelid crease and waterlines so that they hopefully look a little bit realistic. I think I did really well on the eyebrows this time round, actually. I added those little crosshairs that come together towards the top and towards the end of the eyebrow, and it added just that much more realism. I hope this recreation showed you at least a little bit of what I did. Again, I'm really sorry, it's really upsetting. I tried to use 3D eyelashes on her too, because I prefer inset eyes with 3D eyelashes, but I was using falsies that are meant for humans, and they don't look right. So maybe I'll find some others that look better and add them on later. There's a little bit of footage of me adding another layer of eyelashes. I'm sad. So from here, I start on the lips. Of course, I was referencing Millie Bobby Brown's facial structure and coloring as I was going. I tried to mix up the same color for her lips with my paint, and it took a lot of tries. I also noticed that the doll's lips weren't quite the right shape, so I sanded them down and tried coloring them again, and this time I got it right. I used a combination of watercolor pencils and pigment lifted straight up from the pencils themselves with water. When I finished, I glossed her lips with UV resin. Let's shift to the outfit. I drew up a simple sketch and matched up some approximate measurements. I plan on using the same pattern that I used for the top portion of the dress for the jacket, minus the skirt, of course. To draft a pattern, I trace around the doll's proportions, and the first draft definitely won't fit the doll. Again, it's just a first pass. I try it on the doll and then mark out which parts need to be adjusted and make a second set. I try it on, and everything looks good. So then I cut out the pattern pieces out of my fabric. I believe this light pink fabric is from an old slip. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. I fold the hem and the cuffs and begin on the bodice. I'm making this double lined this time round, so I'm making two sides of everything except for the sleeves. I begin the bodice by sewing the shoulder seams first. The original dress has ruching on the front, and I am unsure how to do this on this scale, so I used glue to ruche it instead. It doesn't look exactly like it, but I think it's a close second. I attach the shoulder seams as well on this piece, and then attach the two pieces together at the top. I iron all the seams down so that they lay flat. Then I sewed the sleeves and gathered them into the cuffs. I sewed up the side seams, closing the sleeves and making it a whole dang piece. I added the Peter Pan collar off of camera, and then gathered the skirt into the bodice. I wish that the skirt was a little bit more full, but oh well. I'm pretty happy with how it came out regardless. I make some socks, which are essentially just rectangles of fabric. Tube socks ain't got nothing on this. These fabulous 80s socks have some fabulous ugly stripes on them, so I'm going to add the same with acrylic paint. I recently acquired this material that is supposed to turn acrylic paint into fabric paint. I don't know if it works, but I'm gonna use it. I mixed them together and used them as directed. It hasn't fallen off yet, so I guess it worked. As planned, I used the same pattern from the bodice, widened it a bit, and used the opening in the back as the front for the jacket. I sewed on silver seed beads, and I did end up making 2 of these. The first pass was made out of this weird fleece material, and it was too bunchy and it was kind of weird, and I didn't like it, so I made the second pass in denim. I added a zipper onto this too as a finishing touch. Now for her shoes. I have to make these myself this time, which I've never done before, so that's exciting. My first pass was made out of foam, and you can see where I was going with this, but it's not, that's not what that's supposed to look like. You know how doll shoes are supposed to be open in the back so that you can put them on? I was trying to keep that element, but that was wrong, because I want these to function like a real Converse shoe, and you don't need 2 points for the foot to exit. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't do it for me. So I cut out a full pattern piece and wrapped that around a cardboard base that I traced off of her foot size, and added the tongue of the shoe underneath that. Starting on the details, Converse have this check pattern on the toe, so I roll out some epoxy onto the toe and roll the textured part of my X-Acto knife onto it. This created the exact texture that I wanted. I was initially going to hand sculpt that in, but then I noticed my X-Acto knife sitting there and I was like, wait a minute, now here's a novel idea. I also rolled out the top part of the toe with epoxy as well. So now we paint on the stripes, paint the epoxy white, add silver details, and shoelaces. The laces are actually made out of tea bag strings. I thought you would want to know. And whoopsies! I almost forgot about the signature Converse Stars on the side of the shoe. How dare I? I call myself a fan! Free painting stars is kind of a rough time, but I think I did okay. I'm pretty proud of my first shoe attempt. I think they look pretty dope. She's still just a little bit bald, so let's fix that. I made these makeshift hooks inside of her head so that I could open and close her head but still have access to her eyes. This is fine, but later you'll see that this was constructed incorrectly and poorly, might I add. Remember when I made mini Hava and I used flocking for the shorter portions of their hair? Well, I'm going to do the same here, and I'm going to be using the same hair. If you're interested in where this hair comes from, you can watch that video. You should be scared. I take the tiny cut up hairs, coat the surface in glue, and then drop the fibers onto it. This part was also constructed poorly, but again, I'll talk about that a bit later. I wait for the glue to dry, brush off the extra, and now we have this, which I was happy with until it exploded. I attach her scalp, and now I can start on her blonde wig. I wrap her up ghost style in plastic wrap and some cotton fabric to protect her clothes.
Oh, Jesus.
Ghost.
Yeah, I see that.
Halloween.
Sure is.
I had a very difficult time getting the cuffs of her jacket and her dress over her hands, and I didn't want to do it again. So I left all of her clothes on for the rest of my process, which was dangerous, but it was fine. It worked out. I stretched some fabric over her head, and then put a coat of glue all over that. First I used Fabri-Tac to fill in the natural holes in the fabric, and then I used normal school glue. Because I'm cheap. I think I did about 5 coats of this. I mark off the hairline, and then peel the wig cap off of the plastic wrap, and cut it out. Now that that's finished, I can start on the wefts. I am having to use a combination of hair because I don't have enough. This blonde is from a doll that I actually don't have up on my channel. I made Angel when doll creators were being threatened to be sued, and I took down everything on my channel during that time, and made her as a coping mechanism. Anyway, the darker blonde is a bombshell blonde from Retro Dolls US. Hi Shannon, I love you. I hope you're doing okay. Much love to you. Is this weird? Tell me if it's weird, because I want to hear about it. And when I received this, I dyed it a little bit darker to add variation when I made my Queenie doll. I take the loose hair and glue it in a line on some parchment paper. After that dries, I peel it off and trim it. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you probably know that I'm not the best at making wigs, especially when it comes to plastic and synthetic fibers. And again, using different fibers together and blending them was a big ol' mistake. But I'll talk about that later. I glue the wefts in lines going up the head until I reach the part at the middle, where I glue them on backwards and flip them out to make the part look semi-decent. I can't boil wash this because it's a wig, and like an idiot, the glue I used is water soluble. So I heated up a butter knife to use like a straight iron to style it, but I forgot to check if the hair would melt under heat. And boy howdy, it sure did melt. Look at it go. Wow, look at that. Nice. Nothing too bad. So I switched to hairspray instead, just to get it to lay down. I trim it to where I need it to be, and then I curl it with straws and more hairspray. This was a little bit too much curl, so I tamed it down with a little bit of water, and it turned out okay. I'm just really glad that this is supposed to be a cheap costume wig, because it sure looks like one. Huzzah! So now I take it off, and here's where things take a turn. Part of her short hair just kind of fell off. It wasn't super noticeable, but I figured that if this part came off that easy, then it could only get worse with more handling. So I just peeled off the rest and started again. But this time with acrylic paint. bamboozled. Okay. I use a sponge with varying colors of brown to create the look of hair, because I'm smart. In the process of peeling off her short hair, I also took out the little wire ankles. I did not put wire ankles inside of her head. I also took out the little wire anchors that I built because they were bad and they did not function properly. I found a couple of strong magnets and then glued one onto the top of the scalp and then one to a popsicle stick that was just long enough to sit inside of the head without popping out. I set it in the head with the magnets, and this actually holds itself perfectly, to my surprise. And I still have access to the eyeballs if I need to adjust them. And with that, she's finished. I'll be honest, she's not my favorite. I mentioned in my last Hulkling video that making other people's characters feels kind of limiting to me, and this was really no exception. I think other than specific commissions, from here on I will be making my own characters. Or at least, if I make something based off of another franchise, it's gonna be very much my own style of that said franchise. Because it's just better for my creative brain, and that's really important to me. Taking care of that is very important. So I did, however, learn a ton with this doll, so it is definitely worth it, and I'm very proud of what I've done. But she's not my favorite, and that's okay. Even though I love what I do, it's normal not to love it all the time. It's fine. It's totally okay. That happens a lot. So, more info on the collab. So like I said, this collab is super low-key. So the only person that was done in time for me to show in the actual video is Artstercat. And full honesty, I was kind of blown away when she sent this to me. Cause like I know she's good, but like, do you ever follow an artist for a while and you're like, you know that they're good, and then they post again and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot how good they are, but you know? Anyway, that's how I felt. So whenever she posts the final, I will post to my community tab, and same thing with Hobnob and KMixBaden. This is mostly happening over on Instagram, so just keep an eye on my Instagram. I will definitely be posting about that whenever they post their finals. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining me on this. I'm really excited for the next dolls moving forward. I already have like 4 planned. So, no worries. It's happening. It's happening. It's hip. And it's happening. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this. It's always good to connect with other artists. Alright, thank you for watching. And you know, things right now, things are weird. It's weird being alive currently. Things are changing, and that's okay, but we don't know what it means yet. And that's unsettling, yo! But I want you to know that you're not alone in being confused, and you're still worth loving when you're confused. Okay? Okay. Bye, everyone.